Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. This is your number one South African cricket podcast. We talk all things South African cricket, and it's been a big week in South African cricket. So we're excited to have you join us, either watching on YouTube at One World Sports Radio's YouTube channel or listening on the audio platform, which is on Spotify at Full Quota Podcast or Apple Podcast, whichever way you're consuming us. Thank you very much for joining us, and please do subscribe, like, and share as widely as possible. Let's get this going as far and wide. So, yeah, what we do, we talk cricket, and been a lot of cricket happening. We saw Gwenama Parker's debut happening, and we're going to talk all about that. And then we also then saw him taking his first wicket the next match. And then there's player contract discussions that we're going to be talking about to start off with. But the most important thing is the CSA T20, and we're going to be talking about that. But before we do anything, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, mate. Apologies to all our listeners and watchers from last week. I had technical difficulties, but it's good to be back. Good to be back.
Yes, the Cape of Storms came through for us as we're about to record the player contracts discussion. But let's do it now. Let's have a discussion. So, in our segment of what happened this week, let's start with the easy one. South Africa, the South African youngster, under 17 youngster, Kwenama Parker, had his debut last week in one of the most ridiculous games of cricket I've ever seen in my life. He went for 66 runs with the Sunrisers scoring 277. But he bowled really well. We finally got a glimpse of the speed gun, 141 kilometers per hour, 140 k's per hour. Yeah, he's still got a long way to go, but I was really impressed. He came back again in the next match and took his first wicket in the IPL, which was really awesome. And I can see Mark Boucher using him a lot more going forward in this tournament. Tim, how did you make of Gwena's debut?
Um, so the debut in itself, I think it was, as you rightly point out, a sort of pitch where you wouldn't want to make your debut. Let's put it that way.
Mm,
But on the surface, if you look beyond the scorecard, if you look beyond the bowling figures, I actually didn't think he bowled badly. He just got
mm,
caught on a pitch where you had your margins for error were very, very fine, and he was
mm.
just, and in general, he was either just a fraction too short or a fraction too full. Um, but he came back much better yesterday. In general, I thought, look,
Mm.
we know where he's going to be. We know the future that he's got ahead of him,
Yeah.
providing he stays fit. So I'm not worried that he's been expensive in both games. That's not a. I'm not worried about him. Let's put it that way.
So I think we've seen quite a lot of South Africans getting game time this version of the IPL. I kind of always think of the IPL every year as whichever team is like hot in world cricket, you'll see a lot more. So you're not seeing a lot of West Indians coming through and playing games. There's not a lot of English players. It's largely South Africa and Australia leading the pack, and it's quite interesting to see. And it kind of gives an inclination of what's going to happen at the World Cup coming up later this year. Probably possibly a Australia South Africa final. Who knows? But it was interesting to see the likes of our second string or second level fast bowlers. Obviously, we spoke about Gwenama Parker, but a Gerald Coetzee, who's between, depending on where Anrich Noke is, might be first choice or second string. You also saw Nandre Berger get a run, and Nandre's actually doing quite well in the IPL. And from a batting perspective, it seems like everyone's picking up from their left off. We saw David Miller this weekend with a lovely knock that gets the Gujarat Titans, got them to a very nice score. But what do you make of the South Africans in this IPL? Is it giving you, with every watch, a little bit more confidence that maybe this World Cup could be ours?
It is, and that might be false optimism. I'll put it on the table, but it is also telling me the influence of the SA20. Um, I kind of expected it, so it wasn't going to surprise me if we saw new
Yeah.
faces
Mhm.
going across from the SA20 due to the IPL. There are Indian owners of those teams, so that would make perfect sense. Um, Broader picture, my concerns are still are still where they are. I'm not worried about the cream of the crop. The cream of the crop are now getting more viewers to their
Yes.
talents, which is a fantastic thing for them, and I'm really, really proud, and they should be really proud of the benefits. So from that perspective, absolutely, it's a good thing. My worries are down below, what happens below that. But from their perspective, from people like Andre Berger, like you said, we said last week, he's gonna get better and better. The more games he gets in, he's gonna get better and better, and he's gonna continue to get wickets because that's his bread and butter.
Yeah, no, that's true. And yeah, so it was really, really awesome. So now, next thing that happened this week was the South African women's cricket team, the Protea women, are hosting Sri Lanka. They had a really great game in Benoni to start off with. Laura Wolfart scoring her maiden ton in T20s. They put Sri Lanka to the sword, and you thought, oh, this could be type of another easy series win. They scored 198 in that game in Benoni. They moved over to Potchefstroom and they got bowled out for 137. Wolfart wasn't playing. Annika Bosch got a 50. Marizan Cup got a 44. But it's the same old story. If you know everyone else isn't adding to the runs at all, and they lost that game by I think it was three, but just want to get that correctly. Sorry, I was moving things around. By 7 wickets as Sri Lanka come back, and now we have a decider this week, Tim. That's happening tomorrow in East London, where they'll be taking on Sri Lanka. So if you're in East London, please do go check them out. But Laura Volpart showing us that she's one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Another batter in that I have been saying that should not be opening. First it was Betty, and now it's Laura. Proving me wrong. Absolutely proving me wrong. Um, yeah, look, she just it was a fantastic innings. There's
Mm.
no doubt about it. But the concerns for wider of the team are still
Yes.
there. Um, you know, it's it was good to see. Of course, it was good to see. But you want the other girls, the other players to contribute. And
Yeah.
in the second game, there were not enough contributions from the others, which is a huge concern. But Laura back in form is always a good thing. That's never a bad thing.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And we also saw the debut of Karabo Meso, the 16-year-old wicketkeeper batter. She did really well at the Under 19 World Cup at the beginning of last year. That was hosted in South Africa, and we all believe she's the best gloveman that we have in the country, and it was really awesome to see her take the gloves with that. So it was a glimpse of the future. I think she'll play a few more. Probably will be in the squad to go to the World Cup. But obviously with school and everything else, life can life and life should life, especially at that age. You don't want to throw them in, but it was really nice for her to get her maiden cap. Now, moving on to outside of that. Now, last week, they and the CSA announced the contracts for the men and the women, centrally contracted players. This year, I think CSA have now, for the men, have gone to 18 contracts instead of 20, which may mean to you there's 2 contracts available or they're downsizing. And obviously, the women, I think it was the 16 players who received a contract. We'll just go through the changes to the contracts for the women, color coded by team, which is pretty cool. Um, so we've got Annika Bosch, Tasman Brits, Nadine de Klerk, Lara Goodall, and Thubi with the asterisk is the first time contract owner of a central contract or CSA contract. Sinalo Jafta, Marizan Kap, Ayabonga Kaka, Masabata Tlas, Eliz Marie Marks, who also is just like Thubi, first time contract holder. Nongulego Mlaba, Dumisi Kukune, Chloe Tryon, Dale Mitaka, as well as Laura Volfart. No surprises to this list here, Tim. It's just a worry of where the next group of Proteas is coming. You're seeing Karabo Meso, and it's just a question of who else is next. We and the Khubis looked at as possibly the next best um, fast bowling prospect that we have. And so the only question obviously is, who's waiting in the wings. We know that the team that went to Ghana didn't do that well, and that's just a worry for us all going into this next cycle of games.
Yeah, look, then there are no complaints on the selection of the players
Mm,
here. I'm glad Klubi and Marks got their deserved call-ups, contracts. Um, but you're right. The question is there a plan going forward? So are the discussions on with the players that are on the fringes going, listen,
mm,
if you have a good 6 months, there's a contract there for you. You know,
mm.
that kind of a discussion. Because there are one or two, they're not enough, but there are one or two that are perhaps knocking on the door. So it's all about the wider picture of who's
Yeah.
coming in 12 months, 6 to 12 months time. But on this list, there are no complaints. They all deserve their contracts.
Yeah, no, that's true. And yeah, they wish them well for that decider against Sri Lanka in East London tomorrow. Moving on to the men's contracts. Lots to talk, not a lot to talk about, but things to note. The centrally contracted players, and we just kind of put down the formats that they are playing in, as well, just to,
So,
to kind of
yeah,
provide a bit
so
of a discussion.
I'll explain. So I put in on the left-hand side next to the names, that's the formats they played during the last contract
Yes.
period. And then in the middle, they played those games before the contracts came into play. So they did play those formats, but they went
Yeah.
outside of the contracted,
Yeah.
um, yeah, period. Period. That's the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
So newbies, Tony DeZorzi and Andre Berger are the big headlines to get the contracts, but the contracted players are Temba Bavuma, Andre Berger, Joe Kutsia, Tony DeZorzi, Bjorn Fortuyn, Riza Hendricks, Marco Janssen, Heinrich Klaassen, Keshav Maharaj, Eden Markram, David Miller, Lungingiti, Andile Petluguayo, Kagiso Rabada, Ryan Rickleton, Tebre Shamsi, Tristan Stubbs, Rassi van der Dissen, Kutsia Berger, and Tony DeZorzi are first time recipients of this contract. Bjorn Fortuyn returns as a contractee. He received a contract previously, but now he's back in the fold. Um, Ryan Rickleton also continues. He got one last year. He continues to get one in this year. And if you look at the formats, you could see that if you play two or more formats in the previous year, outside of Bjorn Fortuyn, you can consider Bjorn Fortuyn more of a limited overs bowler. But if you play two or more, they see you playing two or more formats, you'll get a contract. Those who've been omitted: Sisanda Magala, Anuch Nokia, Dean Alga, Wayne Parnell, Keegan Peterson, Quinton de Kock. Magala has been injured for a while now, and I think that injury has persisted. And I think the other question, obviously, is he's more of a T20 type bowler now for the Proteas. And so that kind of was one of the reasons. Anuch Nokia, he requested to only play T20s this year, and he wanted to focus on T20. So he wasn't provided a contract. He declined the contract essentially from what we're hearing, due to his coming back from injury, and him wanting to focus more on franchise T20s and T20s for South Africa. So the question obviously will be: is he available to go to America in a month's time? You also got Dean Alga, who's retired. Wayne Parnell, who is a changing of the guard. He's you could consider maybe him being dropped. Keegan Peterson, he hasn't had a great time with the bat over the last 18 months since India, the initial India series, and so he has no longer gotten a contract. And also, he's a one format player. And Quinton de Kock, obviously, he no longer gets a contract because he's no longer playing tests or in ODIs. He'll be available for the Proteas in T20s. and that we'll find out once the World Cup team comes out. So you can see the one format players were moved off, and some players who either injured, asked to not be, or form being the question being taken out. And then obviously the unlucky players, which I think maybe that's where the discussion will go. Tim, Carl Verena, David Bedingham, Vian Mulder. I think you can make a case for Verena as a multi-format player. Um, but he hasn't put his name hand up in T20s. But one day he deserves to go there. David Bedingham as well, more of a test player, and he was brought in for the test fold, so a lot of outrage around that. But are we going to give a contract for one player when the contract's probably maybe for three formats? And this is one of the reasons, and we'll talk about this, is that they should probably split the contracts, have a test contract, ODI, and a T20 contract, and just contract the guys and pay them. But it'll be a little bit costly, but yeah, well, the other question is they don't have money. And then obviously Vian Mulder, who has had a really great back end of the year and resurgence in all formats. He's a shoe in across all three formats, and it'll be interesting to see why they didn't want to offer him a contract, because I think he's going to play a lot of cricket for us this year. Tim, out of the omissions, are you angry that David didn't get one?
No, I don't think angry would be the right word. Disappointed because he performed. He came into the test side, performed against arguably either the best or the second best test bowling lineup in the world in India. Performed there. Then he went to New Zealand, where he's never played before.
Yeah.
Performed there. So on that metric alone, it's a very small metric, but he performed. You ask him to perform. You ask him to cement his place in the test side. You ask him to basically do everything he can to be on that tour to the Caribbean. As far on that metric, he's done it. So if that is going to be the case, then he probably should get a contract.
Also, you would want to lock him in case there's a row with his county. Right now, if South Africa call him up for the Caribbean, it's effectively, if the county says no, David would probably have to beg the county. But if he was contracted, it was an easy, just know that come the Caribbean, which you will be in, you will have to leave. Yeah. So I thought maybe that would have been something.
So David's priority for the last 4 years, at least 4 years, has been to play Test cricket. That is his priority. Getting a national contract, it's nice, and I'm sure he would like it, but it is not his priority. His priority is to play that Caribbean series. And I can tell you right now that he will play that Caribbean series throughout that entire series if he is picked. There will be no dilly-dallying on that. He wants to perform at the highest level against quality of international cricket to prove to everybody that he can do it. If he can do it against India, he can do it in New Zealand, do it in the Caribbean. That's a serious statement. So yeah, angry, no. Disappointed, yeah. I think that would be.
And Kyle,
more. I think Kyle would rightly be a little bit more aggrieved.
Okay.
Because of the ability across formats. Because the ability across formats, and also, is he not the current Test wicketkeeper?
So look, he is. My argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like my argument is this, right? Until these contracts are split, you can't make a case for guys who only play one format for Proteas. You cannot. And that's my bugbear with this, because that means a guy like David, a guy like Kyle won't get a contract because you're effectively paying them to play for all three formats instead of just one. Had you split it and said it's a white ball contract like they do in England and a red ball contract, Carl and
Well,
David would have gotten one easy, but it's a little
um,
bit more costly to do that.
just on that, England have changed that. England changed that in 2021. It's now
Okay.
central contract. It's now that's your contract. They don't split it. They did split it. You're
Yes,
absolutely right.
and to a certain
Um,
extent, I speak under correction. I think we also used to
yeah,
split it,
we
where
did.
all
We did
there
used
used to
to.
be levels. So it'll
Yeah,
be a contract, but it'll be a one format contract, and it'll be like a two format and a three format contract. And so the only thing absent any discussion with the director of cricket would be what's changed, because guys like Carl need to be rewarded for being the test incumbent. David, same thing. Vian's a different case. Vian is a case for me where you're taking a punt on the future. And this guy's had the potential. He hasn't done it at that level. But across all three formats, he could have some sort of a Mitch Marsh like resurgence where he becomes that type of a player where even in the test side, he's valuable because we're still looking for an all rounder. In the one day side, he fits that bill because he can bat well too. And then obviously in the T20s, we've seen with the Durban Super Giants what he can do batting in that middle order, being as versatile as he's been for the Durban Super Giants and also for the Lions. And so that's the only thing with Vian. But the other two is my only issue is I understand where and everything that comes out of CSA, they'll say we don't have money. We get that, but you can split out contracts and you can, and it's not hard. It's not difficult to say there's a you can even tell that they all have contracts, but obviously the finer details is everyone has a different set of contracts. One who plays three formats has the same doesn't shouldn't have the same contract as a person who has one format. But it seems as though we're just putting everyone in together. And when you look at that list of players with the formats, guys, you need to play at least two. And the other worry for me, if I'm Carl, is you're paying a wicketkeeper in Ryan Rickleton. Does that mean because Ryan can play Test match cricket too? What does that mean for my future? We understand from Shukri that Carl's the incumbent, but it's not a good feeling, especially for the both of them.
yeah.
But the only thing about David is that he can't play for England anymore, or he can. He just has to wait 5 years.
Yes, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Um, the, the thing on the Carl situation is he's
Mm,
now performed across formats. He's just had a fantastic SA20 when
mm,
he wasn't a starter at the Capitals. He came in because they were having such a terrible time, and he had a fantastic tournament against high quality opposition. So
mm.
you can't say no, Carl's a test incumbent and that's it. Carl can play all three formats. He is better at test and 50 overs. That's he's better at. But if you
Mm.
look at his progression over the last 12 months, he's actually bettered his game with the T20 format.
Yes.
Um, I it's, I don't mind if you
Mm-hmm.
get a central contract which covers all three formats. I don't mind that. But with what we're going to get for the next 5 years, it doesn't make much sense. When
Yes. No,
we are
I'm with
playing
you.
so few test matches, it doesn't actually make much sense.
Yeah, no, I got you. Okay, cool, Tim. Let's move on to the CSA T20 challenge. We'll start with Division Two. Yeah. So look,
It
So
wasn't
we know,
much.
yeah, there were three games. One was rained out. Limpopo played the Garden Route Badgers to secure a home semi, which was easy for them. Scored 136 for 9, and they bowled out Southwestern Districts for 100. Calvin King 2 for 14, Aldred Hawken 2 for 14, Don Khadebe 3 for 23. This team is playing some seriously good cricket right now, and they've got a home semi final tomorrow. Northern Cape Heat taking on the Knights. That was no result. That game didn't happen. And then Mpumalanga losing to Eastern Cape Lanyati. Jay de Klerk taking 4 for 17 there for the Lanyati. Malcolm Murray, 33 not out off of 12. Now, that means we've got two semifinals in Division 2. We've got the Limpopo Impalas against the Eastern Cape Lanyati in Polokwane tomorrow. And then you've got the iTech Knights versus the Northern Cape Heat in Mangaung tomorrow. And the final will be played this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see which two teams make it to the final. Tim, the way it looks right now, it could be Knights versus Limpopo, but Northern Cape Heat might want to try and get a little bit of revenge against the Knights for not being able to get promoted again, and the Knights getting themselves promoted over them.
Yes, that's that. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so if you're looking at the semi-finals, you're looking at Northern KP are just going to want to win this trophy. They're going to want to beat the Knights and win the trophy. They won't get promoted, as you say, because that's been done.
Mm.
But the team to watch throughout this semi-finals and throughout this competition is Limpopo. Um,
Yeah,
if they go on to win this tournament, it would be quite a transformation for a team that at the beginning of this restructuring did not
yeah,
have first class status in their games. Um, so like in Pumalanka, they started from ground zero. The work that Gordon Parsons has done there is quite remarkable. Uh, they've outdone themselves by making the semi-final, but now
mm,
they've actually got themselves in a very good position with a home semi to actually go all the way.
yeah, um, yeah. So that's the that's the thing, and I think Division Two is quite exciting, and they've played some incredible cricket. And so here's some players to watch going into the semi-finals. Jacques Snyman of the Knights, he's always been a T20 big hitter. Sadly for him, he obviously didn't get an SA20 contract, but he's a Protea. And has done really well in, well, not so much in the green and gold. So the Knights have him. Eben Botha of the Northern Cape Heat. He's an all-rounder, very good with the long handle and also with the ball, also quick with the ball for the Northern Cape Heat. If the Heat are going to win, he has to play well. Marco Murray of Border, the Eastern Cape Lanyati, he is one player who deserves to be a chance in Division One, and just surprisingly, he just can't get a contract, but playing really well right now for his team. We've also got Ron Haasbroek, formerly of the Lions, wicketkeeper batter, doing really well. He played for Mpumalanga last year, was loaned there. Now he's in Limpopo, doing really, really well for them. Gian Kluter at the Knights, he has been moved around. Remember, he was at the Rocks. He's now back in Bloem and hoping to, well, he's already helped them get through into promotion, but yeah, another one to watch. He's also a player who's a former Protea. Ernest Kem, we've interviewed him recently, so you can go check him out. Opener for the Northern Cape Heat. So too Joe van Dijk, also another all-rounder for the Northern Cape Heat, and Daniel van der Merwe as well. Tim, of all these players, who you obviously you brought up with this list. What makes this list special?
Um, so if we just put down the Sharks name and close it to a side, because everybody knows them. As you say, they're
Yeah.
former Proteas. Everybody knows their names. The guys that I think that I mentioned is Eben Botha. Eben Botha, a couple of seasons ago, was playing for Northwest.
Mm,
He's still very young, 24. I've been waiting for him to really knuckle down and make a name for himself.
yeah.
I've always thought that he was good enough for Division 1 cricket.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he stays down at Division 2 for another season or two, just to cement his place, because he hasn't quite done it across formats. But he hits the ball a long, long way. I've always been a big fan of his. Ruan Haasbroek, I think Limpopo would be much the weaker without Ruan Haasbroek, without his leadership, without his all-round game, batting, bowling, very good fielder. I just think he's like the cog that keeps that very young, enthusiastic side
Mm,
together with that
yeah.
Division 1 experience. Um, and then my two favorites. These are my two favorites. You know me, pace is pace is pace. I love my pace. I love my leg spin as well, but I love my
Yeah.
pace. Joe Van Dyke, who we saw for SAA a few months
Hmm.
ago. I think he's already 30, but I really think he's an
Yeah.
exceptional cricketer now. I think he is
Okay.
really, really exceptional pace bowler. And Daniel van der Merwe, who's very, very young, with left arm pace for Limpopo.
Yeah.
Also, he hits the ball a long way.
Okay.
I think he's got a bright future. I think so. For me, the youngsters, Eben Borter and Daniel van der Merwe, are the ones to watch. If they have good games, I think they could get themselves their teams into the final.
Okay. That's really awesome to see. So yeah, semi-finals tomorrow: Limpopo versus Border or the Linyati in Polokwane, and then on Thursday it is the Knights versus the Northern Cape Heat in Mangaung. So finals either going to be in Polokwane or Mangaung, unless the Heat beat the Knights, and that'll then mean it'll be in Kimberley. So sadly for Eastern Cape Linyati, East London's not going to get a game. You're the fourth seed in this one, unfortunately. Okay, let's move on to Division One results. The CSA T20 Challenge, Division One. For this past week, the Warriors played the Lions in a top of the table clash. The Warriors went 7 out of 7, 7 wins and 7. We're seeing the emergence of Andile Mokhakane, who scored 73, not out of 51, to help them win by 2 runs. Vian Mulder scored 53 of 20. Bear Swanepoel took 2 for 27 in that defense. Went down to that final over, and yeah, the Lions couldn't get over the line. Western Province scored 208 for 6 against the Tuskers in Newlands. The Tuskers managing to get to 160 for 7. 80 Moore, 101 or 58. Much better innings from the one from the previous week. With a better strike rate. Wayne Parnell, 46 of 21. Keith Dudgeon, 35 not out of 17. He's their big hitter there at the Tuskers. They just don't know. They just don't have any others. And Carl Simmons for Western Province drinking 2 for 28. The Tuskers losing by 38 runs. Western Province then went on Friday, on Sunday. Was it Friday? Yeah, I think it was Friday. We went on to play the Warriors in a double header, and or first of a double header, they scored 142 for 7. They lost to the Warriors by 9 wickets. The Warriors managed to score 145 for 1. It was Matthew Brietzke with 62 of 48, and Bear Swanepoel being promoted, scoring 47 of 20. Neelan van Heerden of the Warriors getting 2 for 25 there. That was 8 out of 8 for the Warriors, by the way. 8 wins and 8. They are still unbeaten. The Rocks playing the Lions. They lost to the Lions by 9 wickets. They were restricted to 116 for 8. Nabayomzi Peter score taking 3 for 14. He's the leg spinner for the Lions. Bjorn Fortuin 2 for 15. Reza Hendricks scoring 53, not out of 47. Evan Jones 43, not out of 27 on a seemingly slow wicket with all these promotions for these big hitters. Tim 120 for 1. And to round out the games yesterday on Family Day, the Dolphins played the Tuskers in Potchefstroom. Dolphins scoring a okay-ish average, 151 for 7. Marks Ackerman 54 of 38. Petluguaya 30 not out of 22. So Brian 28 not out of 15. But the Tuskers could only manage 132 for 5 in their 20. They lost by 19 runs. Tristan Lees, from remember him, SA under 19 fast bowler, 2 for 30. And the game between the Titans and the Northwest Dragons couldn't be completed due to rain. So it was a no result. Both teams take 2 points. Tim, the Warriors just keep on going. And it's a question of who's going to stop them, and nobody can.
We could we could pause this podcast and show last week's. That's what we could do, and do that to that section from last week. It's a carbon copy. Um, they are just storming along, but
Yeah.
they're storming along for the reasons that we said last week, because they are playing as a team. Now
Mm.
Mokokani is chipping in with the runs. Um, Everybody is contributing within that side, and that is why they are being so efficient Um, but as we know, in T20 cricket, when it comes down to the semi-finals and things, all it takes is one person, one
Yeah.
game, one passage
Doesn't
of.
matter
But
how
at the
you get
moment,
there. It's about
yeah,
being
at the
able
moment,
to finish when it matters.
yeah, the moment they're doing everything they need to do, and they're
Yeah.
playing the better cricket by some distance. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And everybody else is chasing them in quicksand.
Look, the Titans. I look at. I'm like, oh, they needed that win yesterday. So looks like the pitches this weekend are very slow and low. And teams promoting lower order batters. Swanepoel blasting 42. Evan Jones, sorry, not Risk Jones. Coming up the order and doing the job for the Lions. But obviously the Titans will feel aggrieved because obviously they only had one game this week and they couldn't get a win to get themselves up there. They're currently languishing in sixth, trying to get this their season going, and it's just not happening for them. The Tuskers, I know Ed Rainsford was talking about on the TV saying they face the most dot balls and they need to change that. The only problem is they don't have guys who can avoid dot balls. If you look at that team, it looks like their 4 day side, which looks like their 1 day cup side, which is their T20 side. They have no ability to be reckless, and their game is a game of let's
Yeah.
try put runs on the board and see if today's the day our bowlers have it. And they must be kicking themselves of late for letting Andile Mokhakane go to the Warriors because he would have really helped them out in this season. And unfortunately, yeah,
Look,
that's how it ended up.
signing Cameron Darport has not worked. On paper, it
Mm.
made a lot of sense because they desperately needed a hitter at the top of the innings to get them off, but it just has not
Uh,
worked for whatever reason. The other thing is with yesterday's game against Dolphins.
mm.
I'm sorry, but they should have won that game. They should have won that game. They had the Dolphins 111 for 5 after 17
Yes.
overs. After 17 overs, you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at maximum, maximum.
130.
So they were 5 or 6 down. Maximum, you're looking at, what are you looking at? Another 30 runs. So 140 absolute
Mm.
maximum. They made an extra 11. They made 40 the last 3 overs. That's when
Mm.
they lost it. And you knew. I knew at half
Yeah.
time. I said, that's it. That's it. So there was a glimmer of chance of them staying in Division 1 if they got into a run. And that run could have started yesterday. It could have started. Because I have seen a slight improvement from them as the
Mm.
tournament has gone on. Not enough, but I have seen a slight improvement. And Keith Dudgeon just keeps playing better and better and better. It's just nobody else is helping
Yeah.
him out.
And it's interesting, obviously, because tomorrow they play the Dragons in what you would call I'd say it's like an 8 pointer. Dragons don't go to 15; they stay at 13. You move to 9, and you close the gap, and then you hope that the Dragons, when they travel to Pretoria, to Johannesburg, they start losing games, and you can pick up wins here and there. And for them to stay up, if they can get into sixth or even fifth, because the Titans are struggling too, then they keep themselves in the tournament. And the question of relegation just sits squarely with the Rocks. And the Rocks aren't playing better. And they've also got a game against the Rocks as well. So that's going to be quite important for both teams because I don't think they've played each other twice, actually. I don't think so. I think they're going to start playing each other now. So those games are important to kind of push you away from the other team. But the Tuskers are just not helping themselves. And I've said enough about the Rocks in this season to talk about that. Let's look at the fixtures before we look at the table, and then we end it off. Big slate, big week for the CSA T20 Challenge. The Lions are in Newlands to take on Province tomorrow at 6 p.m. The Dragons take on the Tuskers in Potchefstroom. I'd say there's a must win for the Tuskers at 6 p.m. in Potch. They'll be on CSA's YouTube channel. The Rocks then take on the Tuskers in Paarl on Friday. So big week for both the Rocks and the Tuskers. If anybody comes out with more than 2 wins here, they could put away from the other. Rocks play the Tuskers in the bottom of the basement dwellers game on Paarl on Friday. The Warriors play the Titans in Kabeja. Warriors hoping to go 9 out of 9. Titans looking to get their season on the run. Now we're seeing Steve Stark, Luanda Pretorius in there. So it might change. Who knows? They might be the one to beat the Warriors. The Lions then play the Dolphins on Friday at the Wanderers. It's always a great game between these two teams. Then the Tuskers come to Pretoria to take on the Titans. It's a great time to play the Titans if you're the Tuskers, and we'll see if they'll be able to pull it off there. Then you've got Western Province playing the Rocks at Newlands in a derby. Anything can happen there, and the Rocks will be hoping to be on the right side of that. And then finally, the Dragons are taking on the Dolphins in Potchefstroom on the 7th, on Sunday the 7th in Potchefstroom. So lots of cricket to look out for. Tim, any key games, any games you'll be watching, hoping the team does something in those games?
It's sort of difficult. So we're just sort of past halfway. We haven't really hit the sort of must-win games. Other than, I think you're right. I think Tuskers tomorrow, that is a must-win for them. They actually can't lose any more games. But I don't think anybody in terms of the semi-final spots is out at the moment. There's still plenty to pay for the top 6 sides. So nothing that stands out for me. I mean, we all love a Province Lions game. It's not quite like it used to be, but we all love that sort of fixture. So nothing that really sticks out for me. I guess who can get close? Not even on par, but who can get close to the Warriors? I think that will become clearer after this week's fixtures.
Yeah,
whether that can happen.
Yeah, it is that question, but it's also about just getting into the semifinals, which is why the table is so important this season. But top 4 get to the semifinals. For the Dragons and the Titans, this week is so important for them. They need wins to try and get themselves into that 4th position, and they've got games with which they can do so. So it's going to be quite interesting. That Dragons Dolphins game on Sunday is going to be quite important to kind of shape the way this table looks. Obviously, at the bottom, you've got the Rocks and the Tuskers. They'll be playing each other on Friday to try and move away from each other at the bottom. Also, the Tuskers take on the Titans as well as the Rocks, as well as the Dragons. So they got teams around them that they can try and get wins from, and that's what you're going to be looking at. Obviously, at the top, Province and the Lions are also in the scrap for the semifinals. They're not out. The Warriors, you can say, are pretty much safe. And so they'll also be hoping to just try to close that gap. And obviously there's the question of which team will it be that will beat the Warriors eventually and start the run the other way. Because T20 is about momentum. The Warriors are building up a head of steam and looking like an avalanche, but they need to find that immovable object in order for them to stop this momentum. So it's going to be quite interesting to see this week, and we hope that you do enjoy it. Before we do anything else, before we go away, Tim, do you have any final words? Anything that we need to watch out for this week?
Watch Limpopo. Whether you're going to the ground, whether you watch it on the live stream, watch Limpopo, because they are going to, in my opinion, they're going to be 1 or 2 of those players will be playing Division 1 next season. You heard it here.
And also, Limpopo might just be promoted in next season. If you want to see how a team can turn it around, watch Limpopo. They have turned it around. They have a coach who when he arrived, and you can listen to the interview with Gordon Parsons that we did with him earlier at the start of the season. He didn't know what he was going to get there. When we actually spoke to him like a day as he arrived in Polokwane, and he didn't know what the systems were. He had a small understanding of what it was. He proceeded to change the culture in that organization to being a cricketing organization, a cricket team. Not saying they weren't one before, but a professional organization. And look what happens now. They are staring at two chances at being CSA T20 Challenge winners. And if they do that, that'll be in a first in South African cricket that Limpopo wins a cricketing tournament. Um, and it's going to be awesome. And I think they deserve all the eyeballs. They deserve all the plaudits for this season. We didn't think well, actually, speaking to Gordon, we thought that the red ball would be tough, but it wasn't tough for them. The white ball was a little bit hard, but that was the first one, and they were starting. And we thought maybe T20 they could win a few games. Oh, they led the league. They were the runaway winners in the regular season. And even if they lose tomorrow, that's fine. They've proven their point. And I think it's a lesson in turning franchises and provinces around. And this is a type of model that you need to go forward. They don't have the same amenities as their bigger counterparts. They are building those as they go along, but they are finding talent out of there. Don Khadebe, Daniel van der Merwe. They're using old talent who've been there. Kami LaRue. No, not Kami. Who's the other guy? From
Eldred.
Northwest.
You
Aldred
keep getting
Hawkins.
confused.
Yes. They both played for the Lions. Aldred Hawkins, Ruan Hasbrook, who came from the Lions. And to a certain extent, next year, they'll be able to attract even better players who are of a higher standard at Division 1, who guys are going to believe in this project. Because here's the thing about it, right? Everyone in Division 2 is playing against these guys. They're thinking they've got something going. And yes, it's in the North. Yes, it's in Polokwane. But they're winning. They're a great team. And guys are, and it's funny because a lot of these guys are playing these formats for the first time. And they are taking to it like a duck to water. So all the best to Limpopo. I know the other Division 2 sides, I love you too. But just for this one time, maybe that. But here's the other thing. Border, Eastern Cape Lanyati, similar story. Not a lot of change, but a little bit of a change in management, and you can see how they're reaping the benefits. The iTech Knights took a long, hard look at themselves, and look at what they've done. They've already got themselves promoted, but they had the talent pool and they just utilized it a lot more. Northern Cape Heat, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's a tough one, but hopefully we can
But
beat the night and then go into the season knowing that you again will be in pole position to get promoted. This time, please don't let Limpopo usurp you. But I like the competition in Division 2. I really do like it.
indeed, I couldn't agree more. I was just gonna say that Northern Cape Heat, they know how to win trophies. Let's put it that way. They don't know how to win promotion just yet, but they know how to win trophies.
Yes. And then that's going to be quite cool. But either way, enjoy the weekend, the week of cricket. Remember, also the Proteas women are playing Sri Lanka in the T20s, and the ODIs will start just off of that. So that's going to be quite an important thing as well. CSA YouTube channel, Supersport YouTube channel for the T20 Challenge, and also the Division 2 semi-finals, and also some games will be on Supersport. So please do go check them out and watch them, and also support South Africans in the IPL. We're playing a lot of T20 cricket, but it'll give you a glimpse of what the USA and the West Indies is going to look like. Outside of that, from myself and Tim, it's goodbye and lesale kakahiso.